It was exhilarating in the fact that finally we had something. It was in disbelief because we couldn't grasp it. And then it was relieving that we finally accomplished something after 3.5 years of a really steep uphill climb. Others in the family, et cetera, feel very relieved that we have, the specific remains. And because many people have been, I guess, a bit concerned that we wouldn't have enough good information to go to trial.
That was Dee Warner's brother, Greg Hardy. He's being called now as a defense witness. Let's go in and watch.
And nothing but the truth, federal penalty for perjury.
I do.
Nancy.
Good morning, Mr. Hardy. Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Good morning. I'm Greg Hardy, Greggg Hardy.
Thank you. And to be clear, Dee Warner was your sister, correct?
That's correct.
What's the age difference between the two of you?
19 years.
19 years. And you were 19 years her senior?
Yes.
Now, your property is right next door to the Munger property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I want to take you to April 25th, 2021. Did your wife call you to indicate that Ms. Warner was missing?
That's correct.
Do you remember what time that was, or about what time?
Maybe 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little later.
And then you were active during the course of the investigation to find Ms. Warner. Is that accurate?
I definitely wanted to find my sister.
And during the course of the case, is it true that you wanted to be one of the primary people that the prosecutor communicated with?
Well, I am her brother.
And is that because you indicated you were her full blood relative rather than her children?
I am her full blood relative.
Now, you also wanted to be told details of the investigation. Is that correct?
I was very interested in finding my sister.
Sure. And so, again, you wanted to be told details of the investigation. Is that correct?
The same answer, ma'am. I really was intent on finding my sister.
And so, again, sir, the question, I know you were intent on finding your sister. The question was, did you want to be told details of the investigation? Yes or no, or you don't remember, or you don't know?
I was expecting to work with authorities to find my sister.
So the answer is yes. Is that correct?
The answer is exactly as I said.
Okay. So, Mr. Hardy, I understand that you want to give some context to your answer, but I would just like a clear answer. Did you want to be told details of the investigation?
Yes.
Thank you. And then during the course of the investigation, you actually offered a reward. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that was on March 10th, 2022. You offered a $50,000 reward for your sister's remains, correct?
That's correct.
And at that point, your sister was still missing, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Now, I want to move on to the tank as it relates to finding your sister. Is it accurate that at one point you were in the or on the Warner property loading fertilizer and you had an eerie feeling?
No.
Okay, did you ever make that statement to the media?
I don't recall if I did.
Okay. Does that sound familiar at all, that you would have been on the Warner property and that you had an eerie feeling?
I did buy fertilizer from my sister and her husband.
So with that, you were allowed to go onto the property with, when I say alone, I mean, for instance, not escorted. So no one was near you, correct?
Yeah, I was.
We could just, there are several Warner properties.
Sure. So I'll clarify. So the Munger Road property is the property where fertilizer was stored and sold. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then you were allowed to go on the property and get fertilizer. Is that correct?
Yes.
And does that include tanks? So you're allowed to get tanks and then take them?
Depends on the type of fertilizer.
Well, is some fertilizer stored in tanks?
Yes.
And so were you allowed to do that with that fertilizer that's stored in tanks?
Yes.
And then you told the police that you knew where anhydrous tanks were located, including those that were not on the Munger property, correct?
Yes.
And then You have also claimed that you told the Michigan State Police that there was a particular fertilizer tank that you wanted them to search for on your sister's property. Is that correct?
Repeat the question, please.
Sure. And it was long, so I'll kind of break it down a little bit. You've given interviews to the media.
Yes.
And that includes, for instance, 48 Hours, ID Discovery, and local news media, correct?
Yes.
In one of those interviews, you have indicated that you told the Michigan State Police that there is a particular fertilizer tank that you wanted them to search for on your sister's property.
That's not true.
Okay. Ms. Saylor is going to queue up an interview that you gave. I'm sorry, beg your pardon? Oh, okay. Okay. Would you take that up to Mr. Hardy, please?
Okay, interesting move by the defense, calling the victim's brother, somebody who's really been one of her best advocates over the years that Dee Warner was missing. Let's talk about what Greg Hardy's testimony may or may not do for the defense. Is this a slippery slope? You know, we know where his loyalty lies. It's with his sister. Let's bring in former homicide prosecutor Rick Grundy. Rick, what are your thoughts on calling this man as a witness?
I'm not quite sure what the defense attorney expects to get from him as of yet. If, in fact, she's going down a path that seems to be lending some hint or trying to plant a seed that he had some knowledge with respect to her homicide, maybe on the far end played some part or something that draws away from the defendant, I think she's harking up the wrong tree. A lot of times defense attorneys seize upon people who are close to the victim and their attention sought and got by investigators, their quote unquote involvement in the investigation. I think that 99% of the time falls on deaf ears with the jury. They understand that a family member or a close friend, a spouse, is going to be interested in the investigation, and depending on that person's personality, and I would suggest that her brother is presented, as far as what I've seen, as a strong personality. He's going to take the reins, he's going to be involved, he's going to get answers, that is perfectly natural in the situation he was put. So at this point in time, I don't see the defense getting anything out of this other than poking at probably the closest person to the victim at this point in time.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Rick. And as you were talking there, we were showing everybody one of the billboards, one of the Justice for Dee billboards that her brother Greg paid for and put up. There's one of them right there with a phone number and for anyone to call in tips for her whereabouts. You know, for him to go to such lengths to do this, I would be afraid if I was the defense attorney as to what he could do on the stand. That really gives him a lot of power to go where he might. Yeah, and I guess we're going to wait and see the utility in this together. I guess there's more to come, Rick. But yeah, I'm baffled.
It's so many little things that come up during a trial that can kind of throw the scales, that you don't want to be playing guesswork. You know, I noticed in another clip that we showed, and quite frankly, is the ribbon that's pulled everything together for me so far, was there was an objection that was allowed to be argued in front of the jury where the prosecutor got out, well, he said after his first divorce, he's never going to go through this again, splitting up his assets. Well, that's the strongest thing I've heard in our clips so far as a motive.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Rick. This case, it bothers me for so many reasons. You know, and also I have to wonder, was anything offered to him? I wish we knew, and we're not privy to those plea negotiations. If there were any, maybe someone will tell us later. But I know, Rick, are you surprised this one wasn't resolved?
I understand, I may be incorrect, but I understand from some reporting I read that he was offered a plea deal And I'm dying to know what that was, because I think the defense attorney would have been, Dale, let's sit down. Let's have a long talk about this. The sun may have shined on you for a little bit, but it will go down quickly. He turned it down. So maybe he sees a different perspective of what I've seen so far.
Yeah, sounds like it. Rick Grundy, great insights. Thank you much. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, more testimony from Dee Warner's brother, Greg.
This is the story of the Richins. Eric, a father of 3, met an untimely end, and Corey, his widow, wrote a children's book on grief.
She's also charged now with his murder.
He was faced with betrayal and terror.
I know her innocence.
Is their story a tragic romance?
Or a twisted tale of grief?
The truth will come out.
The Grief Author Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Back to court. We want to take you now. We're watching testimony that's been previously unaired here at Court TV. This is testimony that came in from the defense witnesses in Dale Warner's trial. He called his wife's brother. So think about that. Greg Hardy, who's been a tremendous advocate for his sister Dee. He's been called by the defense. Let's go back in.
Was that your voice, sir?
It was.
And that was you in the interview, correct?
Correct, it was.
And in that interview, you claimed that you told the Michigan State Police that there was a particular fertilizer tank that you wanted them to search for on your sister's property, correct?
I mentioned tank, but it wasn't that specific tank. It was a tank.
Sure. So I'm not saying that you said go look for tank 34. But I am indicating that you said you wanted them to look for a specific tank, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And then once the tank was found, you told the police that you know how to cut an anhydrous tank open, right?
Yes.
And then finally, you have indicated that you believe there is potential liability for you if the prosecutor does not obtain a conviction against Mr. Warner.
I don't think this is relevant.
It absolutely is relevant. It goes to credibility and bias.
I would overrule. I believe there's relevance there. So.
Thank you. So I'll repeat the question. You have indicated that you believe there is potential liability for you if the prosecutor does not obtain a conviction against Mr. Warner.
Well, I have spent 5 years of my life trying to find my sister's murderer.
That's not my question, sir, so I will ask it again. You believe there is potential liability for you if the prosecutor does not obtain a conviction against Mr. Warner?
Well, honestly, Mr. Warner's an evil person, so I don't know.
Sir?
Ms. Hardy, I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to direct the jury not to consider anything that was said in that last response. And Mr. Hardy, I'm going to direct you to answer directly the question that you are asked.
Thank you.
Mr. Hardy, I'll ask again. You believe you have potential liability if the prosecutor does not obtain a conviction against Mr. Warner, correct?
No.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't think our recording system caught the last answer, so could you please state your answer?
The answer is no.
Thank you.
I'd like you to take a look at page 37 for me. And Ms. Thaler, I will ask you to retrieve that when Mr. Hardy is done reviewing it. Thank you. Are you done, sir? Thank you. Thank you. You read that text message, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that text message was from you, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you indicated that you have potential liability if the prosecutor is not successful in getting a conviction against Mr. Warner, correct?
That's what the text says.
And you wrote that text, right?
I did.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, a little bit of leading there at the end, even though it's their witness, not supposed to do that, but it was let go by the prosecution. They're going to cross him next. Let's bring back in our legal analyst guest, Rick Grundy, for some final thoughts. Rick, okay, did this move the ball forward for you?
No, it really didn't. I always try and look at this as I would as a juror and not as somebody who's been enmeshed in these types of things for all the years that I have been. But again, this is a person who he is not hiding the fact from the jury that I believe this man murdered my sister. I want you to convict him, okay? So to the extent that he has not been shy in putting that out there to the press, to anybody really who wants to listen, and to this jury, perhaps his understanding of the law is that he could then turn around and be sued for libel. So I don't see it moving the needle. And I don't think, barring a kind of unique or idiosyncratic situation that a juror has gone through, would they latch onto that as well.
I'm with you, Rick. I'm curious to see what the prosecution does, because, as you know, this is a little bit of a gift for them to get this opportunity to elicit anything they want out of him and make it look like it's under the guise of cross. But we know this is a friendly witness to them, a very friendly and helpful witness. So that should be really good to watch. Rick, it's always a pleasure. What was that? One more time?
I was going to say, you can circle right back around to, when you're introducing the victim to the jury, and what do you want to do that through? One of their closest people who loved them dearly and would miss them. There you go.
You're exactly
Nice
right.
way to end.
Rick Grundy, it's a pleasure having you. Thank you so much. We're going to hit a break, and as we go to break, let's remember the victim. Let's remember Dee Warner. She had so much life ahead of her. She was a wife, she was a mother, she was beloved by her family, her friends, missing for so many years with so many questions unanswered. Until now, that is. Now her case is at trial and her loved ones are hoping for justice. Was her husband responsible for her death? That is the question before the jury. We'll see the cross-examination of her brother live next. It is great to have you with us on this Wednesday morning. I'm Julie Granted. This is Court TV Live. We're covering the case in Michigan for defendant Dale Warner. This guy's accused of murdering his wife Dee and hiding her body for years inside of a sealed tank buried on his property. Court is dark today. Closing arguments are expected to happen tomorrow. And today we're playing the best of the defense case. Let's go back in and hear more from Dee's brother, Greg Hardy.
Good morning, Mr. Hardy.
Good morning.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted as People's Exhibit 175. Do you see tank number 8?
I do.
Do you recognize the Warner spray barn?
I do.
Is that the tank you're referring to?
It is.
Okay. So that was the tank that you wanted the Michigan State Police to find?
Yes.
And you had seen that tank in that barn in the week after your sister went missing?
I did.
Okay. You were in college when Dee was born, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so you never lived in the same home together?
We did not.
And the age difference, 19 years, what did that mean for you and your relationship with her?
Well, as you mentioned, I was already in school when my mom had my sister, and So we never really lived as a family.
Did you take on a kind of a father role with Dee?
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay. So one time when she was in high school, she had a big blowout party that you had to break up?
Yes.
Okay. To your knowledge, did she look up to you as a figure in business?
Objection, speculation.
If he knows, Your Honor, I preface the question that way, if he knows.
It would still be speculation.
I think it is still speculation.
Okay.
It's about her state of mind.
Very well.
Sorry?
Your wife is Shelley.
Yes.
Okay. Did you see Dee try to emulate Shelley?
Yes.
Okay. In what way?
In all ways.
Okay. Dress?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Her outgoing nature?
Can I have a minute?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I was just asking you about the way that you saw Dee emulate your wife, Shelley.
In every way. She was very respectful of Shelley.
Okay. Did they share an outgoing nature?
Very similar.
Okay. Family-oriented?
Very much so.
Up until the time Dee went missing, what was your relationship like with Dale?
I had a very good relationship with Dale. We worked back and forth in business. It wasn't until a month or two after my sister went missing that deteriorated rapidly.
Okay. But up until that time, if you needed something that they might have, go down there and get it?
Both ways the same way, yes.
Okay. Were you close enough that you would see what they were doing on their farm?
Yeah, my property was adjacent and surrounding it to a large degree.
Okay. On Sunday morning, April 25th, 2021, were you doing like your normal Sunday activities?
I did.
Okay. And you own a dairy farm, correct?
I do.
How long have you owned that farm?
My family for 5 generations.
Okay. And so on that Sunday morning, do you recall your activities?
Yeah, I did my normal routine, which is obviously I'm the owner, and so I'm in charge of everything. And the most important part of a dairy farm is the what we call the special needs cows. Those are the ones that have had babies or are sick. And we also have a robotic milking operation. So I always check in on the robotics milking operation first, and then I go to the maternity barn, the special needs barn, and I work with my Spanish herdsman there to take care of those cows.
Okay. Is that Javier or Nicholas?
That's Nicholas.
Nicholas, okay. All right. And you said it's normally what you do. Do you recall that's what you did specifically on Sunday the 25th?
Well, every day on a dairy farm there is a new baby or a sick cow or whatever, and so there's always, I can't remember specifically which animal I might have attended to, but normally in that group there's around 15 or 20 animals that are receiving special attention.
And what time of the morning would that have been when you go up to that barn?
I'm an early person, so I would likely arrive there somewhere between 4:30 and 5 a.m. at the robot barn, and then I came down to the special needs barn somewhere maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock.
Okay. And do you leave at some point for Wisner and Service? That intersection?
I'm sorry.
Do you leave at some point to go up to a part of your farm that's on Wisner and Service roads?
Yeah, after I finished up all my supervision and chores, I had a little bit of breakfast, like normally routine for me, and then because of the particular weather conditions, then I wanted to chisel plow a section of a farm we own up off Service Road.
Okay. And at this point, this is not your normal routine. You know, specifically on the 25th, you went up to Chisel Plow.
I did. It was it's kind of an unusual situation. That piece of property we used to try to build up the soil. We'd spread a heavy amount of manure on it. And early in the spring, when it's still cold, if you work that ground up, it has an opportunity to work that manure in and make the ground more tillable, have better tilth for planting later on in the spring.
Okay. Is that where you are when Shelley calls you to say Dee is missing?
Yes, I was.
And what did you do in response? Excuse me, in response?
Well, I was very surprised about the statement that Shelley made, and I immediately called, and I believe I also texted my sister.
Okay. And when you would call or text Dee, was it just to check in, or did you normally have a mission in mind?
I'm sorry. We didn't typically just chat. When I called her, it was about something important.
Okay. And was it normal for her to answer when you called?
Always. And if I didn't answer her, I would catch it.
Okay. So you called and you said you think you may have also texted?
Yes, I believe I did.
All right. And did she answer?
No, she did not.
All right. Did that concern you?
Yeah, it did concern me because, again, we are not the kind of people that just chat back and forth. If she called me or I called her, it was something usually of urgency. So she would always answer and I would always answer.
Okay. So at some point, does Shelley ask you what your opinion on whether the police should be involved?
Yeah, after she and my son searched for Dee.
Okay, so you heard back from them after Parker's your son.
Yes, he is.
And Shelley searched the Munger farm. Okay. And do you have any idea what time of? Should I wait for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Do you have a sense of what time of day it was when you had the conversation with Shelley about whether the police should be involved?
I believe it was afternoon. She and Parker had looked, and they were kind of trying to put together potential pieces, and it was obvious that she had left without her car and without Angelina, and that became alarming to me.
Okay. So at some point, do you then go home and then with Shelley come down to see what's going on at the Munger farm?
I finished the field that I was working in. They were actively involved in searching and actively involved in working, looking at the cameras at the office. My son was, Parker. And Shelley had gone to the office to also participate in trying to determine where Dee could have gone without her car, without Angelina.
Okay. So that prompts you then to come down yourself with Shelley?
I finished, and it kept persisting. We were thinking that any time something would turn up, some logical reason. So I finished that field, came back, and I probably checked in with my herdsmen. And then I said to Shelley, I'm going to go down and see Dale.
Okay. And do you see him?
I did.
Where was he when you saw him?
Well, Shelley went with me. He was in a tractor in a field straight east of their home farm, tilling what we would call soil finishing a part of the field.
Okay. Going east across Carson,
yes.
There's a house that Brandon Jarvis had lived in at one point?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had rented that house and property, and behind that is a field that Dee and Dale owned.
Okay, and where was Dale in relation to that house, that
Right,
house?
almost directly east of the house, and he was tilling the field only, but what was alarming to me or surprising to me, he was only tilling part of the field.
Okay, and when you till a field, is that so that you can get it ready for planting?
Yes, that's correct.
Would it be unusual to wait a week or 2 or 3 between tilling and planting?
Objection. While Mr. Hardy has run a dairy farm, I think we're getting into expert farming territory.
I think as a lay witness, he can offer, he's a lifetime farmer. I think he can offer his opinion on this.
I will overrule that objection.
So is it unusual? Well, what's the usual course? You fit the field, right?
Generally, depending on your type of farming, but you would till the field, allowing the soil to be tilled up to make a good seed bed, and then you would generally directly plant relatively close behind that within a few hours or maybe at least a day or a day and a half.
And from your own observations, you said that Dale was tilling that field on Sunday afternoon. Do you know when he planted it?
Much later.
Hours, days, weeks?
Weeks.
Okay. And what time of day was it when you met him in the field?
I'm sorry, the
what
question?
Time of day?
Around 8 p.m.
Do you remember if it was light, dusk?
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit pause right here on this testimony. Dee Warner's brother, again, getting to be questioned by the prosecutors because the defense called him as a witness. We'll be right back.
Weeknights on Court TV.
I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments. We have a big hour ahead here.
Your deplorable actions are unforgivable.
The community still doesn't know how this Boston police officer died.
He can't prove one element of his case. It was a dramatic day, a dramatic moment inside the courtroom.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan. Weeknights at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. I want to show you the trials we are tracking for you right now. In Massachusetts, there's an assault trial just kicking off with defendant Lucy Medina. This is a case where we're going to see a battered spouse defense presented by her defense team. She's being accused of assaulting her husband. On the stand right now, a police officer witness, as we understand it. And of note, Lucy Medina has a very high-profile defense attorney, Hank Brennan, who you'll remember was a special prosecutor in Karen Reed's case. He is defending her. So we'll keep you posted on that. In Utah, we're getting ready for a later start this morning in the case against defendant Corey Richins. Normally, court is getting started around 10:30 Eastern time. Today, it's 11:30 Eastern time. So we'll be taking you live there when testimony gets underway. And in Michigan, we've been following the trial of missing woman Dee Warner. Her body was found buried on her husband Dale Warner's property. She was inside of a tank. He says he didn't do it, and his defense team called her brother Greg as a witness. Let's go back in for more of Greg's cross-examination. So remember, this is a friendly cross. It's being done by the prosecutors.
Remember if it was light, dusk, dark?
Well, April 25th, it was basically like getting towards dusk, but still very light.
Okay.
No reason for lights or anything yet.
Okay. All right, so did you ask him what's going on?
I did.
And what did he say?
He said, well, she took off. We had a hell of a fight. She left, and I said, well, what do you mean she left? He said, well, she took a to-go bag, her curling iron, her makeup bag, her phone, and maybe 1 or 2 other things that he mentioned, and she took off, and then he reached in his left pocket of his jeans and pulled out her wedding ring and was bouncing it up and down like a golf ball.
Okay. Was Angelina mentioned in that conversation?
When I questioned him where Angelina was and how Dee would have left, he did mention that she was not there.
Okay, and so that was unusual to you that if Dee had left, she would not have taken Angelina?
Very unusual.
On average, up till that point, how often in a week would you say would you have an interaction with Dale?
Well, it depends on the time of year. I mean, it could be every day. It could be several times a day. It could be once every couple, 3 weeks. I mean, in the wintertime, for example, or something, when we were not actively farming, all of us, I might not see him only maybe once every week or two, but in a busy time of the year, frequently.
Is April, would you consider that a busy time of year?
It was starting to be the very busy time of the year. It started perhaps about the 10th or 15th of April, and it escalates as the calendar clicks on.
Okay. The week after Dee went missing, how many times do you think you interacted with Dale?
I'm sorry?
The week after Dee went missing, how many times do you think?
Extremely frequently.
Okay. More so than the norm, even for April?
Yeah, we were, I was concentrating on the situation at hand, and communicating with Dale for me was critical.
Okay. And he had said to you that she had left without either vehicle, correct?
That's correct.
And did he have a theory at that point in time what had happened to her?
His theory to me when I asked him was that somebody must have, quote unquote, picked her up.
Okay. All right. So did you then want to follow up on, okay, who could it be that would have picked her up?
Well, it seemed very unusual. First of all, if someone were going to pick my sister up, it would likely have had to be somebody she knew. Actually, when I said to him, I said, she couldn't have just looked in the yellow pages on Sunday morning and picked out somebody to come pick her up. So who would have taken her somewhere?
Right. And were you familiar with a lot of the people that she had grown up with, known through 4-H, known through high school, those kind of things?
Well, we have, yes. We have a close-knit community. So, her best friend in high school was my best friend's sister. So, yes.
All right. So what did you do to try to chase down anybody who may have picked her up?
I called anybody that I could think of.
Okay. Friends, family?
Friends, family, co-workers, everybody I could possibly think of.
All right. Do you have an idea of how many people you called in this effort?
I'm sure over 100.
Okay. Did Dale ever say anything to you that he was doing the same kind of effort, making these calls?
No, it bothered me a lot because he wasn't doing anything.
Objection, and move to strike lack of personal knowledge. He wouldn't know what Mr. Warner is doing.
To your knowledge. And you just... So, sorry. So I can withdraw that question.
If you have a response, I'll take a response. But you can't just continue on because we have to deal with the objection.
Understand. I agree, Your Honor. I can rephrase the question.
Okay. So I will sustain that objection. I will strike the answer and direct the jury not to consider the last answer.
You indicated that you dealt with Dale a lot that first week after Dee went missing.
I did.
In the conversations that you had, not anything other than that, did he indicate to you any efforts that he was making to find Dee?
Repeat the question, please.
So in the interactions that you had with Dale in the week after Dee went missing, did he ever indicate to you, did he ever tell you, this is what I'm doing to try to find my wife?
No.
On the Monday morning after the 25th, so April 26th, did you have a conversation with Dale?
I did.
Okay. And where did that take place?
He came to my office at my robotic milking facility.
Okay. Did he have a phone with him?
No.
Okay.
Well, he may have had his own phone. I'm not sure.
Right. Did he mention a phone in relation to your son Parker?
He did.
All right. What did he say to you?
He asked if Parker would be able to get a phone that he had told me that Dee was Dee's old phone that they'd recently replaced when they were either in Florida or on a trip. And she and he had gotten new phones, and Dee had left an old phone in the motorhome. And he had found that phone and wanted to know if Parker could arrange to get her phone number, her phone system hooked up to that phone.
Okay, so he wanted the information off the phone that she had replaced when they were in Florida.
That's correct.
Okay. Did he ever mention that he had been locating these Escalade through OnStar?
Yes.
Okay. And in that context, did you have an idea of how the two of you could find where Dee might be?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you say?
Well, my thought was that when he had said he had been tracking her because he wanted to know where she was, I said, well, if you've been tracking her, why don't we take those locations and we can go to those locations, and if she is left with someone, we could maybe find those locations and see if they perhaps have security cameras. We could then identify whoever this person was that she supposedly left with, and we could get that information and try to track that person down.
Okay. Was he interested in that idea?
No.
After about 10 days that Dee had been missing, did you sit down with Dale and tell him that you wanted him to do something in particular regarding a reward?
Yeah, I wouldn't say for sure it was 10 days, but it was somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay.
10 days to 2 weeks. You know, we'd been working, my family and I and everyone that I knew or friends of Dee's had been working heavily to try to find her. And it just wasn't adding up. And so I requested Dale to come to my office on Sunday morning, and a Sunday morning, which he did do. And I, by this time, was getting pretty stern about this. And I suggested there were two things that were going to happen that day.
I just want to know about the reward.
Okay, so according to Dee's brother, hubby Dale wasn't doing too much to find her. Is that a clue? Let's bring in our legal analyst guest to get some thoughts. Attorney Matthew Mangino on the program. Matthew, good morning to you. Thoughts on this witness and what he's saying here?
Well, I think he's a very good witness. You know, he's emotional. You can tell that, you know, that this whole issue with his sister and her death and her disappearance has affected him. You know, he talked in terms of being more of a father figure to her than a brother because of their age difference. And I think what he's telling this jury is interesting, that it doesn't appear that Dee Warner was interested in really looking for his wife. You know, he indicated that he was about to talk about that there was a reward offered and that Dell wasn't interested, that he wanted to track some areas where Dee may have been and Dell wasn't interested, and in fact said that he was very much involved in trying to find his sister, and that you know, Dell never told him about anything that he was doing to find her. So yeah, I think this evidence, particularly from this witness, in the manner in which he's presenting it, is very, very important in this case.
Yeah, definitely. You're right, Matt. Thank you so much for that. We'll hit a break. When we come back, more on-aired footage for you in the trial of Dee Warner.
You made a public request for anybody in the public who might have an idea to come forward, didn't you?
Yes.
How did you do that?
I did it with billboards. I did it with podcasts. I did it with news media were very helpful. Anybody that I could make, and you know, you depend on your friends to pass the word, and that's how I did it.
Approximately how many billboards do you know?
Well, There were 2 or 3 standard billboards, and then there was a very kind gentleman.
Oh, this poor guy. That's Greg Hardy, Dee Warner's brother. Arguably his sister's best advocate after she went missing and then was later found buried in a sealed tank on her husband Dale's property. Did Dale kill her? That's the question the jury has to decide. And his defense team has called Greg as a witness, but now the prosecution is really making him their witness. Let's go back in.
I just want to know about the reward.
Yes, I told him that I thought he should offer a cash reward for the public to find his wife.
Okay. And did he agree to that?
No.
Did you end up doing it?
I did.
At some point, did you organize a search party of people that were concerned that Dee was missing and to search various properties?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
From that week, starting on Sunday, April 25th, 21, at first, I got really no significant interest from Dale in wanting to make it public. But as the week went on, I decided that perhaps we should take a search party with family and members of the community who were willing to and walk the properties just to make sure that something wasn't out there somewhere. Dee wasn't somehow went out and self-harmed or been hurt or whatever happened, and tried to just check that box off to make sure we couldn't find her anywhere.
Do you have an idea of how many people participated in that search?
Probably around 30.
Okay. And do you have any idea of how many acres were searched that day?
Oh, from 500 or 600 to 1,000. We covered everything from basically M52 clear down to Tipton Highway, which is basically almost 3 miles, and east to west, and we covered north to south, at least 3/4 or a mile each direction, north to south as well.
North and south of the farm.
That's correct. Okay. Our center point was at at Dee's home.
Okay. Did Dale participate in that?
He did not.
At some point, did you get a copy of Dee's phone records?
I did.
What did you do with those?
Well, I wanted to know who she last communicated with. I mean, just common sense tells you that if someone's missing, you want to know who they've most recently talked to. And so, from my nephew, who was working in the office, we took a copy of her records and started tracing down her calls.
Okay, and what do you mean by tracing them down?
Well, just look to see if we recognized a number, and if we didn't recognize the number, I would just call them and ask them.
Okay. Did that give you any leads?
Yes.
Okay. Did you trace them? Did you track them down?
I did.
Okay. Never found Dee? Never found Dee. Never found anybody who knew where she was?
No, I did not.
At some point, you made a public request for anybody in the public who might have an idea to come forward, didn't you?
Yes.
How did you do that?
I did it with billboards. I did it with podcasts. I did it with news media who were very helpful. Anybody that I could make, and you depend on your friends to pass the word, and that's how I did it.
Approximately how many billboards do you know?
Well, there were 2 or 3 standard billboards, and then there was a very kind gentleman. Sorry. very kind gentleman who had a billboard company in Toledo, electronic billboards, and he offered to put up a message trying to find Dee.
Okay. Did you get a lot of support from the public?
Huge.
Okay. Nothing that ever led to Dee's discovery, though?
I'm sorry?
Nothing that ever led to Dee's discovery at this point in time?
No.
Okay. In 1 year, hold on a second. The year anniversary of her disappearance, you had a vigil?
Yes, the second one, yes.
So there was one before that?
Yes.
Okay, when was the first one?
I think in November,
okay.
After she went missing in April.
All right.
Yep.
Can you tell us where you were when you found out that her remains had been located?
Yeah, I was at my farm.
Okay, and how were you notified?
Detective Dreyer called me.
Okay, and can you describe your reaction?
Objection, relevance.
I'll withdraw the question. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hang on one second. It's on the front side of my page. You said that on direct examination, you had indicated that you think you may have some liability if Dale is not found guilty.
Yes.
Is that because of some public statements that you have made about your belief in this case?
Yes.
Okay. And what are those public statements?
Objection, hearsay.
I think she opened the door by asking about whether he believes he has liability. I'd want to ask why he believes.
It is hearsay. Prosecution's right. It is hearsay. The defense has to have a better response for that than she opened the door. Well, what makes it an exception to the rule against hearsay? We'll see what the judge does. When we come back, the jury has some questions for Dee Warner's brother, Dale. Stay tuned.
This is the story of the Richins. Eric, a father of 3, met an untimely end, and Corey, his widow, wrote a children's book on grief.
She's also charged now with his murder.
He was faced with betrayal and terror.
I know her innocence.
Is their story a tragic romance?
Or a twisted tale of grief?
The truth will come out.
The Grief Author Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
We never really lived as a family.
Did you take on a kind of a father role with Dee?
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay, so one time when she was in high school, she had a big blowout party that you had to break up?
Yes.
Your wife is Shelley?
Yes.
Okay, did you see Dee try to emulate Shelley?
Yes.
Okay, in what way?
In all ways.
Okay, dress?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And her outgoing nature?
Can I have a minute?
Yes.
Oh, how sad. That is Dee Warner's older brother, Greg. Greg Hardy is his name. He has been arguably the biggest advocate for his sister, who was once believed to have gone missing, but now we know is deceased. He put up billboards to try to get tips from the public, and now he's been called as a defense witness. That's right, so his brother-in-law Dale's defense team has called him, but the prosecution has done a great job in making him their witness and getting favorable testimony out of him. So where we left off was when the jury is about to ask some questions. Let's go back in.
Okay, so we have 5 questions from the jury. My understanding that the attorneys agree that 4 will be asked and 1 should not be asked.
That's correct, Your Honor. That's correct.
you ever noticed any bipolar tendencies from Dee, and would you consider Dee to be bipolar?
No, but she would love me and hate me at the same time. She's a
Have you witnessed Dee abusing prescription pills?
Absolutely not.
Were you aware Dee would leave at days at a time? If so, what alarmed you when you were notified this time?
She did come to our home for a safe haven because of her closeness, particularly with Shelley, my wife. But when she did come, she would bring her children with her, and she would always share the frustration and explain the toxicity of her marriage.
Objection goes to hearsay and also exceeds the scope of the question.
All right, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it's hearsay, but I do think it probably exceeds the scope of the question.
Okay, so I will sustain that objection. I'll strike the last portion of that answer. Again, direct the jury not to consider the last statement. At what point did your relationship with Dale start going bad?
It went gradually over about a 2-month period. I spent endless hours trying to prove.
I would ask that the witness just be directed to answer the question. It was at what point he said at 2 months and it was gradual. Anything more than that exceeds the scope of the question.
Only to your discretion.
Okay, so sir, I'll just ask you, that's at what point, I think you said how long it took, but at what point did this happen is what the question is asking, so if you could answer that question.
What point did I?
At what point did the relationship start going bad?
Approximately 2 months after my sister went missing.
Ms. Chardy, do you have any follow-up questions based on the juror questions?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Hardy, you indicated your sister would come to your home with her children. Who would be the children?
Well, one time it was Raquel and Zach. There was another time, I don't recall which children came, to be honest.
So it sounds like it was quite a ways before, and the reason I say that is Angelina, there's a gap between Angelina and her oldest sibling. So when was the last time? Do you think it was years before she went missing?
I would say that the most recent time that she took a safe haven at our home was probably sometime maybe 3 or 4 years before she went missing. I can't tell you exactly.
No, that's great. Thank you. And then you indicated that essentially your sister sometimes would love you and hate you at the same time. I just want to make sure I understand. So she would be mad at you one moment, and then after that, kind of quickly get over it. And if I'm wrong about your paraphrase, let me know.
No, I said that.
Okay.
She had a very dynamic personality. She was very outgoing. She would be very loving to me, but if she disagreed with me, I would really know it.
Okay.
But the interesting part is, if she were mad at me today, she'd probably hug me tomorrow.
I have no additional questions, sir. Thank you.
More recently, within the last year or two before April 2021, were you aware that she would go to the lake house sometimes and stay?
I was told that. I was never witnessed it, but I've told that.
Okay. And in any of the times that she would have gone away from the Munger farm for a day or two, was she ever out of contact from you?
Well, she would maybe not contact me one day when she was gone, but if she didn't need anything, she wouldn't contact me. But, I mean, there was no time that I was ever out of communication that my sister wouldn't answer my call.
Okay.
Never.
Great. Thank you.
Nothing additional. Thank you.
Okay.
Somebody murdered Greg Hardy's sister. Was it Dale Warner? That's the question. Let's bring in our legal analyst guest to see what he thinks of this case. Criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Matt Mangino on the show. Matt, taking a look at this, we know tomorrow is the day for the closing arguments, so all the evidence is in. Are you convinced of the state's position? Why or why not?
Well, I think the prosecution put on a good case. I thought that they presented evidence sufficient to show that Dale Warner is responsible for his wife's death. Of course, they have to have proven that, and that's already we're already through that process. They would have to have proven that beyond a reasonable doubt to this jury. The defense hasn't given them a lot to hang their hat on in terms of the jury. In fact, this witness is a defense witness, and if anything, I thought he, really got some important points across for the prosecution. And that ending right there, I would have even asked another question on recross, because when he put his hands in his face in his hands and cried about his sister, I would have ended it right there for the jury.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Matt. That was a moment. He's been a great advocate for her, and I think his testimony really is going to mean something in the end in this trial with the jury's decision.